Hello and welcome to Insights with Monique. I am Monique Gomez, coach, educator, and overall curious human, here to help you lead a heart-led life full of authentic connection. Today, I want to talk about self-compassion. And the reason I'm bringing up self-compassion is because we often are our own worst critics, right? And we often don't practice that self-compassion. We don't treat ourselves the way we treat the people we love, right? We don't empathize with our own pain and suffering in the way that we do with others in our community or in our or around our life. Basically, we will often it will be easier, I should say. Sometimes it's easier to show empathy and compassion for our lovers or our children or our partners or people in our community who are going through a hard time. And yet our inner world is going through a hard time, and we will not feel that. We won't feed ourselves the compassion that we feed to others. So today I just want to talk about that as not a place of selfishness, but as a place of kindness and a place that your heart can experience even more love for yourself. So, I first want to talk about self kindness versus self criticism. I'm familiar, and I'm sure you are too, with the critic inside. We all have one. We all have that inner voice that tells us all the things we're doing bad, right? We're doing wrong, we're doing bad. Um, Criticizing, judging, harsh, just words that kind of will get in a loop if we let it. And so the practice here is being mindful of that voice, right? Usually that critic has a very specific voice, has a very specific tone. You kind of know its energy, right? We can kind of feel like, oh, I'm in pretty harsh mode right now with myself. Sometimes we don't feel that. So the practice of mindfulness can help us understand when we are in that space, when that voice is actually speaking louder than the more authentic version of ourselves. And this might be a voice that you're really familiar with. And it might be a voice that's constantly screaming in your head. So the first thing to do with that voice is to find compassion for it. Just like you would you're a little kid throwing a tantrum, right? Or somebody you really care about being really harsh. Like think of your best friend and they're starting to tell you how horrible they are, how bad they're doing at work, or everything's their fault. I'm pretty sure you would be like, "Nah, queen, you got it wrong." Right? Like that's not the truth that I see. This is a practice you got to do for yourself sometimes. And so the way to work with that critic, that self-critic, is first of all knowing that it is not your true voice, that it is the critic's voice, and being mindful of your thoughts to where you can pick up when that voice is talking, and then also challenging that voice and giving kindness, right? So it's being kind to that voice, or even saying, "Hey voice, I see you. I see you. I hear you." Right? I hear that pain. I understand that pain. I get it. This is hard. Life is hard sometimes, and that critic will come in to make it a little bit harder. Or sometimes when life is at the hardest, that critic comes in and it just like it's almost like a comfort because like, okay, these messages, these thoughts I have about myself, it kind of like the self-critic will start validating what is happening around your exterior world. But when you're mindful and you can call out that critic and and know that compassion and kindness is actually the antidote for that critic. Okay? So I want you to try this out. I want you to notice the patterns, beliefs, the negative critic that starts creeping up, and see if you can just, first of all, notice when it's happening. And then, second of all, say, I don't know if that's true. I want to be kind to myself. I'm going to think of one kind thing. We got to question that critic, because if we don't question the critic, we go into the rumination, we go in the spirals, we go into the anxiety. And I think that's okay sometimes. I think that's very human to do, right? It's okay to do sometimes. But when we're living in that place constantly, over time, our nervous system gets used to being in that place. So we're trying to create new pathways, right, in our brain to where our bodies can find more of an ease and we're not having to live in high stress, high anxiety situations, which also lead to disconnection, right? When we're really stressed out or we're really anxious, we can even start getting depressed. And ultimately, what happens is we begin to isolate. And that is not how we want to connect. That is not a fostering of connection. And deep down, leading from the heart, we want to be able to hold that compassion, hold that empathy for others, to connect with others, and then also for ourselves. So give yourself a break. Think of self-compassion today. Think of it, own it, challenge the critic, and meet it with self-kindness and an empathy for understanding the pain and suffering, but also knowing it shall pass and that you're not going to get stuck in the belief of what that critic is trying to tell you. Okay? Let me know how it goes. Make sure you go check out MoniqueGomez.com. And when you're there, sign up for the Raw newsletter, which is my weekly newsletter where I share more freebies and other insights and basically love I don't get to share anywhere else. So go get on the newsletter list and make sure to subscribe and like this video. Until next time, be kind, come from your heart, and as much as you can, give yourself some compassion.